With the focus of this webinar being our release strategy and patching practices, it makes sense to first start by talking about why you're upgrading in the first place, which, if I have to guess, is probably about our lifetime support policies. What you see here is a depiction in a chart form of our current available database releases. And you may be on 11.2 or 12.1 or 12.2 right now, and each of those releases has a different amount of time left in its official support period, which means the time during which you get support such as bug fixes, security patch bundles, and so on. And most customers wisely don't want to operate their database when they can't get access to fixes for known security vulnerabilities, for example. Now, there's a difference between each of these databases in terms of where we are in the life cycle. The older ones, such as 11.2 and 12.1, are in a period where, in order to get those patches, you need to be paying for support, either market-driven support from Oracle ACS, which stands for Advanced Customer Services, or for 12.102, extended support. Now, if you have a ULA, which is an unlimited license agreement with Oracle, you can get extended support as a zero-cost item as part of that ULA. But if you don't, if you're paying on CPU-based licensing, for example, then you would have to pay extra for that extended support. Now, we accumulated quite a customer base on 12.201, which was kind of unexpected, being that it was the first version in our 12.2 release family. And because we have such a high customer base on it, we did add a couple of years of limited error correction support onto its initial 3-year support period. But even there, you're in the waning days of that support period, and you really need to be thinking about migrating to a release that will have support into your past mid-2022. And even more urgent is the need for people who are on 18C to get upgraded to 19. 18C is a shorter-term innovation release, and that means that it's not going to get any extended support whatsoever. There was never any confusion about that in terms of our support documents or differences between our policies and our support notes. So there's no excuses there. It's time to move to 19 for sure. So you see 19 has that 5 years of Premier support, of which there are more than 3 years left right now. And then it will get 3 years of extended support, which again, if you have a ULA, that extended support can be a zero-cost item. And then there's 21, which is available right now in our cloud. We followed that cloud-first release strategy for 21, just as we did for 19 and 18. And it's available in our database cloud service and in our autonomous always free tier right now. So I've talked about different types of releases here, and you've seen that some releases get much more support than others. And we have terminology for that we're trying to settle on and kind of make across the board universal terminology. A long-term support release like 19, that's the one we intend you to deploy your mission critical production systems on in most cases. And that's because it will be a platform that will be there for at least 5 years of Premier support and 3 years of extended support. Most people don't want to upgrade those critical systems every 2 or even 3 years. They want to be able to sit somewhere comfortable and maybe not have to upgrade until the next time they recycle their hardware, which is usually on about a 5-year span. Now, we also produce releases like 18C, 21C, and we call those innovation releases. Those are meant for customers who want earlier access to new features. Those new features, of course, will be in the later long-term release, but if you want it as early as possible, say you want, for example, the binary JSON data type that's in 21. If you want to start developing on that now because your application can take advantage of that, and you're planning on certifying and even say on 23 when that comes out as a long-term release in a few years, you might want to get that innovation release into your development environment, start using it. Even maybe some early adopter customers might want to deploy it in production, but you do have to be aware that you will have to upgrade that release probably within 2 years of when you first start using it. So that's your difference between long-term support and innovation releases. If you want any more details on this, such as there are details such as the fact that innovation releases don't get release update revisions. I'll talk about that when we get to patching later. Go to MOS Note 742.060.1, our release schedule of current database releases, which is kind of our roadmap note. It gives you everything you need to know. It's our single source of truth in our support documents about our release current status and strategy. Now, I mentioned 12.2 and being the base release for the 12.2 family. And this did cause some confusion when we changed our release numbering from the old major dot minor kind of motif, 11.1, 11.2, 12.1, 12.2. And then we went to 18 immediately. And that kind of threw people for a loop. And probably we didn't communicate that as well as we could have. But it's important for you to know, and we've been repeating this now for about 3 to 4 years, 18C was only about 45 days away from being released as 12.202 when we changed the number. It was really just a number change on the 12.202 patch set. And 19 was already under development as 12.203 when we changed our numbering scheme. So 19C can really be viewed as being the terminal patch set of a 12.2 family, and 21C, that innovation release, is kind of that first release of the next family. And that's why we give you that longer support on 19C, because it incorporates all of the improvements that were put into 12.2, all of those new features, but it's also got a lot of stability fixes in there. And that's what we expect you to be on for the next 5 to 7 years. The other thing that I'll mention is, while we don't have our next long-term release on this chart, we will be talking about that soon. And our goal, what we always commit to, is that we will make sure that you have enough time to upgrade from one long-term release to the next. That's what we always want to make possible for you. Now, that MOS note 742060.1, that's the type of thing that a lot of DBAs would access, DBA managers, but often your executives, they want something in an official policy document. And we do have our lifetime support brochure PDF file that's linked off of oracle.com. You can download that and you'll find that it agrees wholeheartedly with the MOS note. So whichever way you want to consume that information, whether your leadership needs to know, well, why are you recommending that we go to 19? Well, here's why: because the support dates mean that we can go to 19 now and beyond that for a good 5 years before we have to do our next upgrade project.